go ahead and introduce Steve. So, Steve and I got to know each other a few years ago. We had a personal conversation, and he's just one of those guys that you trust. And the more I heard your name, Steve, the more I knew that I wanted to bring you into the staffless community to help people learn how to grow a practice from a heart-centered place through education. So take it away. I just want to give you this time to tell us what we need to know to build our practices so that we can serve more people and do so joyfully.
Yeah, so that's an extremely important topic to me. Thank you for the opportunity, Jody, to share with these providers out there. I, my story was similar to yours. We had children who had some health challenges, and I needed my practice to be to serve me and my family too, not only the people in my community. And prior to that, my first practice was really something that was serving without me really being fulfilled, in terms of I was giving, right? This is very common of healers, right? People who want to give so much but not really receive and then make sacrifices in a whole lot of other areas of their life, whether it's finances or family, right? And those are probably the two biggest areas that healers can potentially make these sacrifices. And so, out of necessity, because of my son's intense autoimmune challenges, I had to create a practice that fit the lifestyle that where I needed to be there, for my family. And so I created what I call a stress less practice. I love the fact that you're called staffless. I refer to my practice as stressless because I had enough stress in my life, and I didn't want a practice that was going to be stressful. Nor do your people coming into your practice want to be in a stressful environment. So the concept was build everything around stressless processes, make it simple. We tend to make things complicated. Now we need systems. If we don't have systems, it's going to be stressful. But making systems simple. So that's what I did, and I needed a way to build a brand new practice on a shoestring budget. Part of my story is I sold my first practice, traveled around the year for 9 months, and came back broke. I had to borrow a car from my parents. I had $200 in my bank account. I had no home. I had to figure things out and quick, and I had a very sick child. And so I had to figure this thing out. And what I knew for sure is that I had a message to share, and that lives deserve to hear that message because that message was critical for those lives to be impacted, right? And so I had to figure out how to attract people, and I did so by doing workshops. I'd done workshops in my previous practice, and I saw the value of it. It was not the thing that I ever wanted to do. I was deathly afraid of public speaking, and I know some of you listening right now can identify with that probably, right? And so I had to overcome that fear, and I did it through just recognizing that I didn't have the luxury of not sharing, right? Because the information we have has the potential to transform people's lives. So I believe that having that type of information is the one of the greatest crucibles and refiners of our own lives and selves, right? Because it's either going to break you or it's going to make you. Right? Can you guys identify with that? Maybe you've had that experience where, like, man, this thing is going to, because if you don't share at the level that you know that you would love to be doing, it creates a massive contradiction in your heart and soul, right? And that eventually eats away at you, right? And so my message today is number one is that we all have limiting beliefs, right? Who doesn't here? Anyone here not have limiting beliefs ever? Maybe you've overcome them, maybe you've dissolved them, but we all have them. And I think it's important to just take a moment and kind of laugh at ourselves. The fact that we all have these limiting beliefs as humans, it's a natural part of our existence. And yet we pretend like we're the only ones who have them instead of us just being like, yeah, we have them and they're kind of silly. And let's move forward. Like let's move forward together, like embrace them and like still do the thing. I did the thing, you probably have heard the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways. That's the approach I took. And I don't know that that's necessarily the best approach. I think you can dissolve it without having to do that. I just pushed. That was my winning formula, which, as I mentioned, in terms of sacrificing family, friends, finances, that winning formula for me worked in a lot of areas of my life, but it also sacrificed a whole lot. So, what I'd love for everyone to hopefully take away from today is that you can have it all. Okay, you absolutely can have it all. You don't have to push. It can be a lot easier. Now, what that means is though we have to have self-awareness. We have to, embrace it, not feel the judgment against our limiting beliefs. Recognize we all have them, and feel, like ask the question like, what would life look like if I was sharing at the level that I know I need to? Right? What would that look like? Right? And what skills would I need to embrace? And where, who would I need to work with to get there? Right? And you guys are working with Jody, you recognize like and this is fantastic. So many, I used to go through life thinking I had to do it on my own. And so I had coaches in football and other places, but then when it came to practice, I thought, well, I don't need a coach. Like that's a sign of weakness, right? These were my limiting beliefs, right? And part of my winning formula, which, stunted my growth for a long time until I finally started bringing on coaches. So anyway, these workshops, this was the key that set me free, right? Because now I was able to figure out this formula to regularly attract 15, 20, 25 people to my workshops with ease, right? So imagine, well, how many of you that are listening right now would love to be speaking in front of a room full of people once or twice a month, where it was like clockwork, where all you had to do, because this is what I needed. I had a very sick child at home. I needed to be able to, on a Wednesday night, walk into my office, plug in my computer to my TV, and have 15, 20, 25 people ready to hear the message. How many of you would love that? Like it was like where it was easy. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is simply a math formula. Okay. And so I personally have given over 300 workshops. I've coached my associates and led them to give hundreds themselves. I'm in the process of creating practices that will be entirely workshop driven. The practice I'm describing, we only did workshops, no other type of marketing. Not that those other things aren't important. They are. Like my new practices will have other pieces, but for me at that time, that's what I needed for my lifestyle. My company, Waitlist Workshops, has helped doctors give over 10,000 workshops and counting. So the butts in the seat part is actually one of the easiest parts. Now, it isn't necessarily easy for you. I understand that. And that's just because you don't know the formula, right? So here's the formula. The formula is real simple. So you take an ad budget, right? Because you need to do ads. The way I figured this out is I got on Facebook and I started doing the advertising and I figured out how to do it. It really was not that complicated, but I decided, well, not necessarily decided, I had to feed my family. I told you I was broke. I had to feed my family. I figured this thing out, how to get people through ads to workshops. So the recommended ad budget right now, say if you want to have 15, 20, 25 people in your office, you're looking at an ad budget of approximately $1,500, right? That's what consistently, and I know that without a doubt that if my clients or my office has that budget, that we can get that number of people in the seats. Why is that? Because we know that the cost per lead is going to be somewhere between $10 to $15, so per registration. And so if you have 100 plus registrations, now the next part of that math formula is show rates. Show rates are going to be between 18 to 22%. They have been for over 10 years and they're going to continue to be probably for the next 10, although I'm constantly trying to improve that. But that's what we know. So now you take that 100 people registered, multiply it by a show rate of 18 to 22%. This is why you will have between 15 to 20, 25, even 30 people, depending upon that show rate variation, in attendance. That's the math, that's the formula. It's very formulaic. Now, you may not know how to do the ads and those things. That part is it's not rocket science. You could do it on your own. You could figure it out. You could ask AI. You can do a lot of things there, right? Or you could work with someone who does it all the time, which of course, I could help you do that. And that's part of why Jody brought me on, so I can share that that's what we do. However, I want you to really take this piece in. This is the most important piece. Getting butts in the seats is easy for my company. That's not our number one problem. What do you think our number one problem is as a workshop company? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
I would say getting them from the seat to learning to saying yes to care, to
Yeah,
making a change for their health.
yeah, absolutely. See, the workshop itself it's the vehicle. And when people show up at your office, they're showing up to a bus station, right? They're showing up and they're at this bus station and they have lots of different routes they can take. Right now, it's when they get into the seats, it's now your job as a tour guide salesperson to help them understand that it's your bus that they need to get on to get to their desired destination, which is the absence of the problem that they came to learn about. It's really that simple. Now, there's an art form to shifting beliefs because what we're really talking about, that bus, the workshop itself, is a vehicle to shift beliefs, change beliefs, open up beliefs. And that is an art form to shifting beliefs. And it's one that I obsessed over. It's a question I obsessed over because I knew in my heart and through the science and research that if so, and my clinical experience, that if someone were to decide to work with me and to follow through with my care plan, I knew what the future looked like them. And I'm sure you guys too. If someone comes to your office with a problem that you crush, that you're great with, and they would just decide to work with you and stick with it, do you know what the future holds for them? Does it look a lot brighter if they decide to work with you than not? Like you know this. The challenge is that they don't know it. And more importantly than that, the real challenge is that they don't believe it, right? Because knowing is logical certainty. And you guys probably are very familiar with this. In school, we are lectured at constantly. We're given all this information, right? Realize though that when people come to a workshop or even when they call your office, they are not looking for information.
Mm.
What they're looking for is transformation. They may think that they want information, but what they really want and need is transformation. Because information alone, does that give them the transformation that they need? I'd
Mhm.
encourage you to just embrace that in your heart right now because I can tell you without a doubt, after coaching hundreds and hundreds of chiropractors and other types of providers, that we are living in an information place, right? We think
Mm.
that if they would just know this information, oh, they want this information, they need this information. And because of that, then we just give them information
Mm.
without the emotional certainty they need to believe that you and your service is the next best step in their lives. Because if you really gave them that, why would they ever decide to not move forward with you and at least find out and take that next step of having that exam? And so I would encourage us to really take ownership of that. Now, that doesn't mean take on the burden and the illogical belief that every single person is going to take advantage of that opportunity. There's a lot of real reasons, logistically, even. Maybe someone comes to a class and they live 2 hours away because they're visiting at the time, or maybe they're going to be moving next week. There's a lot of real reasons. Or maybe even consider this, that where they're at with their own limiting beliefs, that they're not just at a place emotionally, mentally, spiritually to move forward. Like there's very real reasons why some people will decide not to move forward with you. However, if you give people, one, you build rapport, trust, and credibility in the beginning. You don't do this, which I see is very common. You try to justify your right to speak versus standing in a place of vulnerability, authenticity, and boldness around the results. You see, one of the things I often say is, in the beginning, after I've introduced myself, one of the other areas where we tend to do this is we want to give people all our accolades, all the things we've done, like to justify your right to speak. Those things are nice. Have them on the screen, but don't go deep into them. Because what people really want is connection. They want to see you're a real person. So it's more about building rapport, trust, credibility. Can I trust this person? Is this person going to be there for me throughout this process? Right. And so once I've done that, I say, now the reason that we get the results in this clinic is because we have a different approach.
Mm.
Right. And what that does is it creates intrigue about, okay, well, what results? Well, he sounds like he's pretty certain about the results he gets. I don't have to, because I'm standing in the place that I took you guys to before, which is the future. If you lead with such a strong presence around your your reality, which is that you can see the future for these people, and you step into that, you'll no longer try to justify your right to be speaking. Right? Now, there's some very real things that some of us have to overcome, depending upon what profession you're in. As a chiropractor, I have to overcome two very real objections, and I can tell you this, that I used to avoid them, and most people do because they're scary. Right? So as a chiropractor, and I'm speaking on the topics I was speaking on was autism, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, epilepsy, anxiety, depression, PTSD, autoimmune issues. Is that what the public thinks chiropractic is good for? No, not at all. And so I had to learn, I had to figure out how to craft a way to handle that objection early, throw it out. The other objection for some people is that chiropractors are quacks, right? So you have to be able to boldly and do it in a fun way, be able to throw those out there and slay those objections, right? This is before them even getting on the bus. This is just a part of convincing them to get on the bus. Right. So now we have to build rapport, trust, and credibility. We have to build some boldness and intrigue about what you're about to talk about. Then we have to slay some objections. Once we've done that, then we can give them a testimonial, a pattern interrupt, and say something to the effect, depending upon your profession, say, hey, listen, the reason I share Fatima's story is because I get it. I understand that if the public has a positive impression of chiropractic, what do they typically think it's good for? They're gonna spit it out, right? They're gonna say the things. And so at that point, now we make a request. Say, so here's my request. Just for tonight. Take whatever beliefs you have, go ahead and take them out of your ear, set them down on the ground. And at the end of the evening, if you still want those beliefs about what this thing is that we're about to talk about, feel free to take them with you. However, if you feel like you no longer need them at that point, go ahead and leave them behind and we'll gladly discard them for you. Sound fair? So now at that point, I just asked for permission for them. I made a request that they suspend those beliefs and have an open mind. At that point, that's the point I'm saying, okay, and when I say that, how many people do you think like, no, I'm not going to do that, right? If you do that now, they're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to listen to this guy. And now I basically said, all right, come on onto the bus. The challenge is, what do you think happens if we're leading with our product, right? Whatever it is, whether it's chiropractic, acupuncture, naturopathy, whatever type of provider you are, if we lead with the product instead of doing all the things I just mentioned, how many do you think you're going to get as many people onto the bus? You're going to have people who are still in the presentation, but they are not on the bus with you. So then when you get to the ending, the close, then they're not even available. So now that we have them on the bus, Our job is to make sure they don't get off the bus. So why would people get off the bus? They typically do it when we challenge their beliefs too intensely before we've created the logical certainty necessary, or we're going into our own commentaries on things that would be that they're too intense to try to solve in an hour presentation with a stranger, right? We have to build the relationship. If there's some really intense topics that you're really passionate about, just consider this. Am I actually pulling people towards me where I'm going to be able to influence this decision in their life? Or am I potentially pushing them away where I'll never have that opportunity for them? Who's this really about? Right? Because you will get people in the crowd who will be like, yeah, yeah, you're right. But you also have other people pulling the handle like, oh, this is my stop. I'm getting off right here. And they'll stay in the room, but or some won't. Some will get up and walk out. And then you won't have as many people at the end. So now what most of us do during this middle section, the bus ride, most of us are giving logical certainty the entire time. Now, logical certainty is great. We have to do that. It has to make logical sense. But do you know what people say at the end of the workshop? And I'm quite certain you guys have heard this at some point. I know I did until I really got this point. If you only give people logical certainty, you know what they say at the end? They walk up to you. They're excited. They're happy. Like, oh, that was such great information. Thank you so much. Goodbye. And they walk out because you only gave logical certainty. If you don't give them emotional certainty in you and your product, your office, they will logically think that they can go somewhere closer, somewhere less expensive, somewhere that takes their insurance if you're not in network with insurance. Now, if you give people the emotional certainty where they believe that in order to get the result, the thing that they came for, the transformation, that they have to work with you, now that's where they say, yeah, how do I do this? What do I do next? So that's the key. And the way we do that inside of work, inside the bus part, the driving part, is by testimonials. Make it relevant. Make it relevant to them at different pieces. Now we get to like arguably one of the most important sections, the close. I don't like calling it a close, though. Years ago, my son, I was explaining this to him, like, man, I'm having such a tough time helping these doctors understand, like, that they have to get this closed, but what it really is an opportunity. It's an offer. He said, well, why don't you call it an opportunity? And I really love that term because this is a point, and as providers, we have so many different limiting beliefs. Like, oh man, I don't want to, what will people think if I'm giving them an offer? I don't want to look like a salesperson. All these things, right, in our heads. What I'd encourage you to do is, do you have the right to not give them an excellent opportunity to work with you, right? Because what we're really doing here is we're giving them an opportunity. And that's what I share. So here's how my opportunity goes. Now, keep in mind a couple of key things. It has to be, you're giving people emotional certainty. That comes through your certainty, how you transfer that to them. Also keep this in mind. This is how I do it, okay? I speak in a certain way. This is my voice, not your voice. You're going to use different tones, different things, but the principles remain the same. So, because what you're doing is you're giving a transference of your certainty and clarity to them. Now, keep that in mind. If your clarity and certainty is not rock solid, if you have limiting beliefs around that, how strong can the clarity and conviction and certainty be for them? All right, so it's something to really check in with. So my opportunity close goes like this. After I've given a video testimonial, I like video because it gives me, one, they can connect more with video, but also for me, because I know that for me, that was one of the hardest points in the class because I had that salesman, limiting belief, all these different things. Most people, not just providers, most people, when it comes to this offer, they speed up when when you really need to slow down. This is the most important time. However, we speed up because we feel uncomfortable here. We think they just want to go home. It's like all these things. So slow down. The video helps you just get a glass of water, take a drink, take a deep breath, check in with, with your mentally, emotionally, spiritually about what's about to transpire. And this is what I share. So guys, when I do classes like this, I want to give you the opportunity to find out, to see how we can massively transform the health, well-being, and quality of life of yourself and the person you came to learn about tonight, but not just for yourself, for your entire family, because every one of you deserves to have a healthy spine and nervous system. And so when I do classes like this, our first visit, which includes comprehensive sit down together, where we're going to go over your history, understand how this all developed, right? And we're gonna have the comprehensive nervous system evaluation that we talked about, so that we can see exactly what's going on, right? And after that, we're going to come back together and we're going to sit down. We're going to go over a course of action for correction so that we can help remove this obstacle from your life. Now, that first visit is normally $350 in our office. When we do classes like this, we offer that for only $150 for an individual and only $250 for an entire family unit. And we do that because we want everyone to have the access and opportunity to find out, to at least see what's going on. Now, as I mentioned, after that initial visit, we're going to sit down together and go over a course of action for correction. Now, when on a corrective care plan, most individuals are typically paying between $250 to $450 per month, depending upon what we see on that initial evaluation. And we're seeing individuals twice a week for the first 8 to 24 weeks. Now, it's a corrective phase of care. That's because it takes time and repetition to unwind these chronic structural and neurological processes that are patterns that have been developing sometimes for decades for some individuals. And every 12 visits, we're doing progress exams so that we know exactly where we're at in the corrective process. Now, I want you to know this. Now, while we are not in network with insurance, we work exceedingly hard to make sure that healthcare here in this office is both accessible and affordable. And so that is never the reason why anyone would ever decide not to at least find out and to move forward. Right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to sit down together and we're going to go over that course of action and we're going to develop a plan that's going to work for you and the family, right? Because there's always a way to move forward. And I know that's the key for the transformation you're looking for. Now, that opportunity that we're talking about is good for tonight only. And it's not because I want to be a jerk, right? And push or pressure you into doing anything. It's because in giving these classes, I've given hundreds over the last 20 years. I know something is absolutely going to happen because it happens every time. Now, as soon as we're done here, many are going to stand up, you're going to walk up, you're going to go up to Jane, and you're going to find the times that are going to work best for you and your family. However, I also know some of you will be at the front and we'll have scheduled that appointment, and then you're looking at your calendar and say, oh, wait, that's that Tuesday night, that's Johnny's soccer practice. Or you'll say, oh, you know what, I need to talk to my spouse and I'll call you tomorrow. Here's what I know is that over the 20 years that I've been giving these classes, that for those individuals, tomorrow rarely ever comes. And so the people that I know I can absolutely help are the ones who take action tonight and just take that first step to find out and see, right? And if you need to reschedule that exam, no big deal. Just give us a call and we'll reschedule that for you. But commit tonight to making sure and finding out. Because imagine if Fatima's family had not decided to make that step, right? And so in just a moment, I'm about to end the presentation. I'm not going to be taking any questions here publicly in the interest of getting everyone home on time, but I will be here for any and all questions for as long as you need me. So please do come up. Let's chat. All right. So thank you so much. Be sure to stand up, go up to the front, talk to Jane. She has all those appointment times. Get that appointment time. And I can't wait to see how we can massively transform your health, quality of life, and well-being. Thank you so much. Now, I've done that a few times. The principles there are this. You're giving people that opportunity. If you lead with, again, knowing where you're taking them. And what I had to do is, if you just consider this, you guys know that you can transform their lives. You have the certainty. You know what your process looks like. They don't know any of that. what we've often been taught is to not show them all of those things. And so what we do is we leave out details out of fear of like, oh, well, man, because I told them it's going to take twice a week for the first 8 to 24 weeks. I forgot one piece. What I always tell them after that is, now that's the corrective phase. The supportive phase, we're going to see you once a week for the remainder of the year. I tell them that part. Like, it's a year process. I told them how much it was going to be. I gave them a range. We tend to leave those things out of fear. We don't answer a lot of the questions they have. And if you leave objections unspoken, you lose, right? Because if they have to ask afterwards, like, oh, do you take insurance? Like, you've lost almost. You can try to try to save it. But the principles are you're giving people an opportunity and you're taking them to this point in this destination, this bus trip, where now you're at the close and the next step in the destination is your office, except it's a distant island. It's a utopia in the distance where that transformation is guaranteed almost. And instead of being able to show them the island and how beautiful it is, you have a white canvas right there. And you have paint on the ground and a paintbrush, and you got to paint a picture so crystal clear for them that they can see that future too. And if you're able to do that, that's where transformation happens because now people have the emotional certainty in you and your product and service in your office. Thank you for the opportunity, Jody, to share this with you and everyone else. It's part of my life's work. I only recently stepped into really taking, really giving myself the acknowledgement that I'm great at this and that I can help people become great at this. And I'd love to hear any questions you guys have because I'd love to help you help more people. The stress less practice I mentioned, really evolved into my company now, which is Waitlist Workshops. Right. So Waitlist Workshops, is that where you wanted me to go, Jody? Into that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So Waitlist Workshops is a turnkey system to help individuals who have a powerful message to share to be able to not only get butts in seats, but to give them the support and the training and coaching that they need to give people not just the logical certainty, but the emotional certainty. Helping people find their voices is really what we're doing. And that's what leads to lives transformed. Without the voices found piece and you finding your voice where you can give people that clear picture of what it looks like to work with you and why their future looks so beautiful with you in it. Without that piece, you're only giving information, right? And so we realize that as a company, and that's why I've invested so much time, energy into coaching our members on that. So it's a turnkey system. We have a turnkey for chiropractors who are subluxation focused, nervous system focused in that model. Now we work with other docs too. We have different topics that are ready to go. We're working with naturopaths, acupuncturists, anyone who has an important message to share. And so the next step is really just jumping on a call, seeing if this resonates, if it's sounds like a great fit. You want to be in front of a room full of 15, 20, 25 people on a regular basis and be able to convert them. When people do that, and this is why this is the only type of marketing I did in my practices for a 12-year period. I didn't do anything else. Is because the return on investment with workshops is, in my opinion, one of the greatest. It's going to be on the low end, it should be 5 times, the 5x. On the high end, 8, 10, 12x with workshops. If you're able to take one workshop and then get external speaking opportunities with those, which is absolutely possible. And I have trainings on that as well.
And you guys, wherever you're watching this recording, you can find a link below this recording to connect with Steve and his team.